Hello, Tamily. It's time for a very special interview, which is episode 150 of Ask Tamily. We have Catherine as our guest, and she's going to be joining in just a second. Interview 150! Hello!
Hey.
Thank you
Hey.
so much for joining us and for being interview 150.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like a TAM celebrity just being on here.
Absolutely. I'm sure it'll be historical, especially since you're 150.
Yeah, lucky
So
number.
thank you so much for joining us. We have some questions planned for you, Catherine. And of course, we'll also ask questions in the chat so people can type them in anytime. But we'd
Great.
like to go ahead and get started with our favorite question, which is when and how did you start doing the Tracy Anderson method?
Okay, so I started back, I can't remember if it was the end of 2009 or beginning of 2010, but it's basically been like, I guess I'm in the 11th year of doing the method. And the way I came across it is I was really obsessed with this famous model here in Japan. And her name is Jessica Michibata. So she's like half Japanese, half Spanish or something. And, 10 years ago, there wasn't really like that influencer culture that like there is right now. But in Japan, a lot of the people who are like famous models, they have like their own blogs. And basically, people would just, buy or wear whatever things they liked from people who are in these magazines. And that's not really something you would see in the States. Like you'd see a bunch of models in a magazine, but you don't really know like who they are. So they kind of already had that like influencer kind of feel even back then. And I remember seeing that she was doing like an interview with Tracy and talking about the method. And I was like, okay, well, her body's amazing, so I have to try this out. So that was really how I got started with it. And I bought the first set of DVDs, which was the post pregnancy and also just the regular mat workout. And even though I haven't had kids, I still decided to try post pregnancy. I thought that would be good because my midsection was really like the area I wanted to target. So yeah, that's how I got started.
Wow, that is a very unique start to Tracy. We hear so much about Oprah and Gwyneth. It's really cool to hear a different story.
Yeah.
Um, so what made you choose the method and then stick with it for this time frame of, that being the right fitness method for you?
Yeah. So, I basically like I had been a yo-yo dieter before I had moved to Japan. So, um, the the time around when I had started the method was also not too long after I had permanently moved to Japan. And I think what's really interesting here in Japan is there isn't really this culture of people liking to do like HIT method. Is that how you pronounce it? Like high intensity interval training and like there's no like you don't go around seeing the whole like no pain no gain, like people aren't like very hardcore. Instead it's like every kind of like on every block there's like a yoga studio, people are into Pilates, people like to go walking and they like to have like these smaller, you know uh, smaller toned bodies. They're not going for like like strength and getting around booty and like all those things that you hear in like Western kind of marketing. So I think like for me, when I was before I had started the method, I was really hardcore with workouts back when I was living in the U.S. And I was just not losing weight. And I was, I used to be an ice hockey player, and I used to go to the gym, and I was like lifting weights, and I was really like jealous of my friends who were just kind of sitting around eating chips and they looked fine, and I was like exercising every day and trying to figure out why this wasn't like really working. And so yeah, around the time I learned about the method, I was like, okay, well, let me just give this a try. And I was really like very kind to myself, so I didn't force myself to do it like daily. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to try it like twice a week. So I would exercise, and it was really hard. And so I would wait like a couple days till I felt like, like I had the muscles again to kind of do another workout. And I really started to see my body shift after the first 3 weeks of doing the method. And so that's kind of why I decided to continue on the path of using it. So I was basically kind of like in this environment where people weren't really that hardcore and they were going more for this like yoga Pilates style stuff. And so I felt like I had that mindset to just try things in a different way and to see if my body would shift differently with a different kind of exercise.
So what kind of results have you seen over the journey with the method?
Yeah, so back when I started the method, I actually lost 40 pounds. So that was like the biggest transformation, and I hadn't had any weight issues whatsoever for 10 years. And actually, I think it's really good I'm talking to you now because COVID was like a really hard time for me, like with my health this past year. So I actually gained some weight during COVID, and that was the first time in the last 10 years I've like had any weight related I wouldn't say it's a challenge per se, but just like I hadn't really thought about my weight in such a long time. So I'm actually kind of like getting back into the method again and kind of getting back into this exercise routine. So I kind of have that like initial success story with 10 years of like no problems, just doing exercise and healthy eating. And yeah, now I'm starting to kind of like rethink and re-engage with some of the things that I've heard from the method, and, you know, also trying to, it's kind of like a good reminder of all the things I've learned in the past 10 years.
Well, it's really good to hear, you know, of course, all the different stories that we hear in the Tamily, but especially to hear from someone that it's like, you can actually do it for a really long time and be having really great results and encounter another challenge. Like, you know, we're never really done the journey, and then you can find your new way and
Yeah.
go about it, you know, to see what is like best for you and, you know, for your overall wellness.
Yeah, it's great because like the method has always been there, and it's like the relationship you have with the method is what kind of shifts over time. So I think that's what's been really cool about it.
Absolutely. What would be your advice to someone who, you know, isn't new to the method, but they're not feeling motivated to work out, or maybe they're having some similar challenges like you have?
Well, I think like if it's just a matter of someone like not feeling motivated, I guess I personally have like I've consistently done exercise for a really long time, but I haven't really made it a point to make TAM the number one thing I'm doing every single day. So I think that one thing that's actually helpful for me is to have like a mix of different exercise. So I do for whenever it comes to like muscular or like muscle training, I always do TAM, and I try to do that. I mean, going forward about like 3 times a week at least, I would probably do that. And then anything like cardio related, I just started like last month learning about squash, and, you know, trying to go out with friends to go walking or, you know, hiking or something like that. So I think that one of the ways that makes me feel more engaged with the method is knowing that I'm only doing the mat workouts like a few days a week. And it's like, okay, this is my day for Tracy. And, you know, I'm not going to see Tracy until the next time that it's on my schedule. So I actually think like it can help you re-engage with the method if you just kind of give yourself like a different sense of environment, and then you can see yourself kind of getting more excited about doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think you can also see how like the method actually influences the way you might be able to do, you know, something else, like keeping up with people that maybe play squash all the time. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, actually, you know, I think
Yeah.
that's a really cool aspect of it too.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So it does help kind of like with the other you know, movements, I guess. So the point is try to be consistent about getting movement. And then, you know, if you find yourself kind of getting like you've been doing the method so much that you need like a change of pace, I think it's good to like maybe swap one of your dance cardios for, you know, some other type of cardio, and then you can come back to it and get more excited about it again.
So, when you do the mat workout, which workout are you doing these days?
Yeah, so right now, because I'm getting back into my routine with TAM, I'm actually revisiting the Perfect Design series. Yeah, so I was doing, for a few years, I was doing the streaming, and then I've taken a pause from that. And right now I'm just doing some of the previous stuff. And it's so interesting because I know 10 years ago I found this hard, and then I was like, oh gosh, this is so easy. Like, you know, what am I going to do with these DVDs? They're just going to like collect dust, as I was thinking. I was getting into streaming. But now I've been, you know, trying to re-engage with the perfect design method. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling it like all over my body. So I'm glad that I held on to those. And yeah, so right now I'm kind of like in this getting back into the routine phase.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't know like what the difference is, but perfect design is extremely difficult. And I even did what is the one called? Precision toning. And I thought I was gonna die. I'm like, I would
Yeah.
rather streaming. And streaming is not easy. It's just it's interesting to like revisit some of that and see honestly how hard her method has been forever.
Yeah, and I remember like, you know, 10 years ago, I was like, because there was only the DVDs at that time, it's like, you know what the next sequence is and you know what to do. But it's interesting because like I've been doing the perfect design now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had been doing that move slightly wrong like that whole time. And I realized she's doing something different with where her knee placement is or how she's holding her arm or whatever it is. And so I'm like, wow, I guess I wasn't paying attention as much as I thought I was like 10 years ago. So yeah, it's like relearning it, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think our Tracy awareness is probably way more keen than it ever was like doing DVDs. So that is definitely an interesting perspective. What is something that you feel like you have learned from Tracy?
You know, so I think one of the things that she says all the time that I've realized now is like if you're not exercising, you're either staying the same or getting bigger. And I was like, yep, that's what happened. So about a year ago, I was really feeling very fatigued and like my muscles weren't repairing. Like, you know, that feeling you get when you wake up the next morning and you have like that muscle pain feeling. I was feeling that for like days on end. And I was also going for like long walks and my calves were kind of getting swollen and I was like, you know, something's kind of off. And I found out that through my birth control pill, I was actually becoming zinc deficient. And so zinc is basically what your body needs to repair and also to absorb proteins. So that's like a big reason why my muscles kind of like weren't doing so well. So I basically took some time off just to kind of heal, to go off of the pill and just to kind of like let my body get back to, you know, just feeling energized enough to exercise. But yeah, I'm noticing that despite doing the method for 10 years, you know, there's that expression like you're getting down a bike again and you can just pick up right where you're at. That I don't feel that way with the method. I feel like I consciously know what these moves are, but my muscles feel like they did 10 years ago when I was first starting. So I guess like just from that, for anybody who's listening, like if you take a couple weeks off for a vacation, that's probably no big deal, but like a considerable amount of time off from doing your exercise, I really understand what Tracy meant now by saying like just missing some of your workouts. It's really like your muscles are losing that training. So that's kind of the one from Tracy that's really like glaring at me, I would say right now. And yeah, I guess just some of the other things she said about like the consistency. I really like the whole concept about the method I love is about how she's targeting those other muscles, like around the major muscles. So I remember back when I had first lost all of the weight, I was like, okay, well, if you train like a ballerina, you'll probably look like a ballerina. But if you train like, you know, a hockey player, which I was doing, you're probably gonna look like a big, meaty, you know, hockey player. So kind of, I realized like, okay, you need to do the right kind of exercise for the body you're trying to design. And I think that was like the biggest takeaway I got from Tracy.
Yeah, that's such an excellent point. And I mean, it can be so difficult, you know, in the fitness industry and thinking like, oh, I'm going to look exactly like this person when I do a 15-minute workout 3 times a week or whatever. Like, really, when you understand Tracy's philosophy and stuff, it makes sense. And it is all about the design of the specific workout.
Yeah, so like stay in your lane, focus on your own body, and like just focus on like making sure that every part of your muscles are getting balanced and that they're getting the attention that they need. And I think that's like the overall takeaway, that just really haven't come across other people in the industry who think in that way. And I just think it's so refreshing, because it was really in alignment with a lot of the things that I see here in Japan about the exercises people do here and how they get a smaller body. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to make that connection with being in a different place.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite thing about the method?
My favorite thing, I think that I know initially when I first started, I really liked the fact that she doesn't really talk, because I feel like I was really able to just focus on doing the exercise and also, like, when you do other workouts, people are like, oh, okay, come on, 5 more, like all this stuff. And I felt like I was, over pushing myself. But because she wasn't talking, I felt like I was able to really like listen more to my body and just, being more kind of like aware of what I'm doing, instead of trying to like listen to someone or trying to force myself to do like more stuff than it was maybe capable. So I think that for sure. I also really like the arm exercises, because the method was the first one that made my arms smaller. And I think for my personal like body structure, I have very wide shoulders. So I've always really been self-conscious about trying to get a little bit more of a delicate look on my upper body. So I think like her way of doing the arms has been great, especially with like the lighter weights. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say those are kind of like the biggest things that I like about it.
Yeah, it is amazing what she can do with the fact that we only ever use 3 pounds. Like, yeah. And then think about what people are trying to achieve, and they're like, I've got to use more and more and more weight, and that's never make your arms smaller, actually. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know that you live in Japan, but we want to hear more about that and about what you do and when you moved there and all of that stuff.
Okay, so let me backtrack. So I am originally from Florida, actually. So I was born and raised in West Palm Beach.
Okay.
And my mother is Japanese. So I grew up basically going back and forth between Japan and the US. And so I came to Japan for university, and I basically just wound up staying here ever since then. And what I do for work now is I actually help foreigners living in Japan as both a life coach, and I also do corporate training for cross-cultural, understanding of cross-cultural communication and just how to do business in Japan and those types of things. So I've been able to work with like a lot of really interesting people in many different industries who have come here either as expats or either, just to make a move to Japan and make Japan their home. And that's essentially what I do. So I've basically grown up living between 2 cultures, and now I can literally use all of my knowledge from that to kind of help people assimilate to living here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's been really good. And actually, that's kind of how I got involved with doing with the Tamily, actually, because Alice, who is Turtle Mama Fitness. I was on my regular account, and I think I just went to like Tracy Anderson Method hashtag, and I started following some people, and she kept coming up in my feed, and she wrote that she was moving to Japan. So this was a few years ago. I think she's back in the States right now. And that was the first time I like engaged with someone who is in the Tamily, and I was like, oh, you're coming to Japan. And then through talking with her, I was kind of like, you know what, maybe I'll set up a fitness account. And so that was kind of like what I like the first kind of interaction, and kind of what encouraged me to create my account and get involved more with the Tamily. So
that's an amazing little connection. That's excellent.
Great.
So when do you think that was? Because you were doing the method for before Instagram was even invented.
Yeah, so I think it was honestly, I don't even remember, because I feel like because of COVID, like I've lost sense of time. So I think it's probably maybe 3 years ago, it might have been, because it was right before she came to Japan, and I think she was here for a couple of years, and now she's back in the States. So it must have been like a few years ago. Yeah.
That's awesome. It sounds like such an interesting job. Was it impacted a lot, like during the pandemic. I imagine there weren't a lot of people moving. Like how did that influence your job?
Yeah, so it definitely has. But you know what's interesting is when I started my business, I actually wanted to be a wellness coach because I had lost so much weight and I learned so much about Eastern holistic nutrition from being in Japan. I started off wanting to be a health coach, but then I wound up getting into cross-cultural stuff and learning how to assimilate in Japan because I found that those were the biggest pain points people were having living here. Like they didn't even know like how to shop in a grocery store, much less learn like how to get healthy. So that's how my business segued. So now, even though there's not a lot of new people coming in because of the travel bans, corporations have actually been asking me to do wellness talks instead. So yeah, so from my business perspective, it's still been pretty stable, and I haven't really had much of a shift compared to maybe people who work in relocation who are helping with like people actually coming into the country. That's obviously been like dramatically affected. So yeah, we're kind of hoping that people will start to be able to come in maybe post Olympics, which we're still trying to figure out if that's even going to happen.
Yeah.
I actually live just down the street from the Olympic Stadium, so
Oh,
it's only like a 10-minute walk from here. So it's interesting. I can just go walk around there, and I look at it every time I'm around there, and I'm like, is this going to happen? It'll be really cool to kind of see things happen there. So yeah, just hoping that there's a flood of new people coming in and who I can help with that element of the business.
so knowing that you're passionate about wellness, like what is your kind of nutritional philosophy and how is it different when you're maintaining weight versus when you're trying to lose?
Okay, so this is a really big topic, actually. So I think that the biggest shift for me when I was learning about health was learning about Eastern holistic nutrition. And the reason is because when I was living in the States, it was all about science, like protein, carbs, calories, um, you know, macros, like all of those things that you have to count, vitamins, minerals, so many things where it's like one giant math problem, and you have to like weigh yourself, and then you have to do this calculation to find out like what your calorie deficit is and like all those things. And then you have to go on to Google to find out how many calories or proteins or whatever is in the food you're eating. And I was just like, gosh, this is like so exhausting. But also I realized like it wasn't creating an intuitive method of eating. Like, so on one hand, like you want to be able to use your body's intuition to kind of guide you towards the foods that it needs and develop a healthy, positive relationship with food. But on the other hand, if you choose the way of doing the science, you're where food becomes one big math problem. It's kind of like I felt like I was developing a more negative relationship with food because I couldn't see anything on my plate without looking at numbers, and sometimes what I wanted to eat or my body was craving wasn't aligning with the things that I was trying to force myself to eat in that way. So when I came to Japan and I was learning about Eastern holistic nutrition, the primary things that you're looking to do is, for starters, just to align with eating with the seasons, because the concept is like, okay, Mother Nature probably doesn't want you to be overweight and like out of balance. And the seasons are changing, which means that the climate, your body needs something different in different climates, right? So, in the summertime, you have a lot of items that are very high in water content. Like, let's say if you're talking tropical region, like coconuts and mangoes, and these are things that are high in natural sugars, but also high in lots of water content. So it's good to keep our bodies really hydrated and also have that extra sugar to give us the energy we need within that climate. And the same goes for things like coffee, acai, any type of thing you hear is a superfood. They usually come from very hot regions and hot climates. That's where they're grown. But if you live in a very cold environment, you might need more root vegetables, things that are going to give your body warmth and things that are going to help, just keep you warm. They tend to have more mineral content too, because it's grown in the ground. So the dirt has more minerals there. So I was just starting to get more in tune with like, okay, starting to kind of trust what Mother Nature is providing for my body, and trying to explore more things that are connected with seasonality. And the other things that Eastern holistic nutrition cover are like making sure that your body's function is in balance. So like, are you having a bowel movement every single day? If not, then maybe you need more hydration, maybe you need more fiber or whatever it is. So just like trying to focus on like having a good digestive system every day. Or if you have cold hands and cold feet, maybe you need to have more ginger in your diet, or maybe you should avoid salads and start to have cooked vegetables instead to keep your body warm. And I really resonated with these things because I'm like, I used to force myself to eat salads, but I really don't like them. Like I don't like any raw vegetables, and my hands and feet, I have really poor circulation. So just being like, okay, my body's actually telling me like it's okay to have like warmer cooked foods. So I started having like cooked soups with vegetables instead of raw veggies. So those kind of like principles made me start to use my body's like cues and functions to kind of guide me towards what foods are going to balance that. And I basically, between that and TAM, like that's how I lost so much weight in the early stages. So yeah, I think like I kind of went in a circle there, but if anybody's listening who's interested in knowing what that is, there's two things you can look up. One is food energetics, which is kind of the concept of like eating for balance with nature. And then the other thing is macrobiotics, which is basically eating kind of in this yin and yang balance. So yeah, those are the things that I like to explore that really made a big difference. And ever since I did that, I basically haven't had cravings for strange things. I used to have like really ridiculous cravings. Like I couldn't get rid of my like sugar cravings and things like that. And then I felt like my tastes shifted and my body started craving different kinds of foods that were healthier. So it became really easy to maintain because I just didn't have cravings for the things that were, not good for me. So yeah.
So I don't ask this of all our Ask Tamily interviews, but have you written a book?
I have written a book. Yes, thanks for asking. So I brought it here because I know I wanted to mention this too. So it's called Confessions of a Yo-Yo Dieter.
It looks so fun.
Yeah. So I decided to put this as like, you have a dilemma, like, should you just eat the cake or do you want to fit into your dress? I feel like that's the constant dilemma people go through when they're eating. It's just like, oh my God, is this gonna ruin my like how I want to look, or should I stick to how I want to look, but then I don't get to engage with the things I want to? So it talks about like the journey of how I learned about macrobiotics, and I have like a whole bunch of like cartoons that I put in here too.
Oh,
so yeah, I have like just like little cartoons that relate to diet dilemmas that people can look into. And if they want to learn about things like the Eastern holistic nutrition, I have like how you can weigh what foods you're eating on this kind of yin yang scale.
Okay.
And yeah, that kind of helps them understand like how am I eating in balance? Because if you eat in balance, your body will become balanced. That's basically how you can think of it.
That's excellent. We'll have to have you post where we can get the book.
Yeah,
because I'm definitely intrigued now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on Amazon, but I'm happy to let people know where it's at.
Fantastic. Well, we have a couple of questions in the chat. So Nicole would like to know, how did you start your business?
Okay, so I started my business as a health coach. And I kind of started backwards. Like most people start by like just getting one client and then they start to get referrals and they build their practice. For me, because I'm in Japan and I wanted to spread all this knowledge that I have here in this book that I had learned, I was like, let me just start with like a digital platform and I'll try to reach people kind of globally. But I found that kind of challenging because people are in different time zones, and also because people have different resources for foods. So, you have different access to different things. So it's kind of hard to kind of help people with their nutrition unless you know what they're able to shop for, like in a grocery store there too. So I was like, okay, let me start to kind of focus or segue to just helping people locally here in Japan. And that's when I started discovering that they don't know how to shop in grocery stores and that they were having kind of more emotional challenges with trying to assimilate culturally here. So my business, that's kind of the turning point where I started doing more corporate training work. I don't know if this is answering the question in terms of like how did I set up a business or something, but that's essentially how it started. I basically just decided to create like a website and get my social media going and try to connect with people who wanted to learn about Eastern versus Western holistic concepts. And yeah, and then it just kind of started to segue from there. And now I help people in corporations or just one-to-one.
That's fantastic. You're really making me want to visit Japan.
Yes, please.
I will definitely message you if that becomes a possibility.
Absolutely.
Fit Mama Jama would like to know, how long did you do TAM streaming and how different is it from the TAM DVDs?
So I did streaming for maybe a few years. So I actually I started with the DVDs and I think I stopped after Perfect Design. And then, I felt pretty good about like the mix of exercise I had. And then I started getting into the streaming after that. I think that the difference with streaming is, first of all, for starters, streaming has more, I would say just more. It has like the 3 different levels. You have start, and then you have the fundamentals, and then you have attain. So it has 3 different like beginner to advanced levels. And also the exercises shift every single week. So you get new content every week. I think that what's good about the DVDs is if you're maybe more in the beginner stage, it's probably easier to dedicate yourself to those DVDs, even if it means doing the same DVD for like an entire month before you get used to it, before you go up to the next level. I think that that's probably a good use of the DVDs. But I think like anybody basically who's starting right now, like the streaming has everything that you would need in it. So I think it's totally fine to just get started with the streaming. But I've seen people do different things. I've seen people kind of pick up the DVDs, even Metamorphosis too, and try to like go through Metamorphosis first and then go into streaming. So I think, I don't think there is like a right or wrong way to get started with the method. And if you wanted to just jump into streaming, that's probably perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's kind of like just figuring out your way, but there are so many choices. Like,
Yeah.
you can certainly go many different routes.
Yeah.
Fit My Dama would also like to know, what do your friends think of the Tracy Anderson method?
You know what? I've told so many friends that I love the Tracy Anderson method. I don't think anybody has really like looked it up or tried to like figure out what it is. I do have clients though who I've like told about the method and they've gotten involved with it, and they've definitely seen results too. I know one woman I worked with for about 6 months lost about 20 pounds. And part of that was starting to just go from doing high intensity training to doing more stretching, yoga, and TAM style workouts. And that helped lean her body out. But yeah, in terms of my friends, I know I told my family too, and I even like gave my mom a DVD a while ago, but I don't know if she's ever tried it before, but I know that it's sitting there in our home down in Florida. So
I feel like I've left DVDs like everywhere I go, but
you sprinkle it, you're just like, you need this.
No one has become a crazy tammer, but
yeah.
I don't know. It has to be the right time. It has to be the right workout for the person. So
Exactly.
Do you remember what you first posted to Instagram as a member of the Tamily?
I don't. I'm pretty sure my first post was just an introduction, like, hey, here I am. I'm going to start this account. But I don't really remember like what the image was or what specifically I had said. But I think it was probably just like an intro post.
And what is kind of your like philosophy about posting your workouts and things like that? Are you doing that regularly now?
You know what? Like I think for this past year, I've been kind of I haven't been as engaged with posting because I've just been trying to get myself back into exercise. But before that, I was posting pretty much anytime I would do the method, I would record it and post it. But I think that maybe I'm I don't know what's changed with the app, but I remember I used to be able to just easily edit it, like take a recording and then just take out clips. And then all of a sudden, like the app was updated or the phone or iPhone was new. And so then some people were showing me how to like edit it in iMovie app. And I find that so tedious and annoying that it makes me think twice about doing the recordings at all to just find a clip. Or I think maybe I should just only post one clip, but I don't know like what exercise is interesting enough to share. So I think like I probably need to get a little bit more used to or figure out like a better way of doing the editing and posting. So if anybody has any any ideas to share with me, that'd be great. But yeah, in general, I'm totally open to doing the video recordings and posting them, and that's what
I think I lost you for a second, but you seem to be back.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, that was just a minor intermission. I was just gonna say that I feel the same exact way about the video editing. I actually like went so long without posting a clip that I have
Yeah.
no idea how to do it. So I
Yeah.
just go live for a few minutes and then I
Yeah,
don't.
maybe I'll have to do that instead. I feel like if I don't post anything in my feed, then people are like, where have you been? But then
Yeah.
so I think like it's important to at least have like some posts there to let people know you're still there.
Yeah.
But you know, even though I haven't been posting as regularly this past year, like I've definitely been coming into the app and I love seeing everybody like post, and that still like gives me that connection to it there. So yeah, maybe I'll have to try the lives.
Yeah. They're fun. But I think too that we all kind of go through, just like with, the workout and everything else, there's like phases where, maybe you post every single day and that's something that like is fun and fulfilling. And maybe
Yeah.
post once a week, once a month, like, but the
Yeah.
TAM is always there. So
Yeah, I think like if for people listening, like you don't have to be all or nothing. It's not like you have to post every day or you don't at all. Like yeah, just like whenever you feel like posting or updating, like
yeah.
as you said, the Tamily is always there. So
Yeah, somebody's posting every day.
something.
So they'll be there. What is something important to you that you want to share with the Tamily?
Well, I guess one thing I haven't shared, I don't know if this is like important or not, but I had this, I posted this like a while back. This is actually a Tracy Anderson method guide in Japanese.
It's so fun.
Yeah, and it's so fun. It has like all of her like workout moves, and it has like in Japanese like all of the ways that you're supposed to do it, and it's really cool because there's actually like also an eating plan, like a sample menu plan here, and like and I thought this was so funny. I was reading it because it says like for breakfast you should eat brown rice and miso soup. And I was like, I don't know if Tracy's really suggesting that, or if someone she was collaborating with was like trying to like design it for the Japan market. But yeah, I was just looking at this meal plan and I thought it was so funny because I was like, okay, this is definitely like geared towards people in Japan here. But yeah, she has like all the info even about like the cardio stuff, and it's essentially her 30-day method book, which I think she's probably had in other languages too. So it's basically like moves you can do every single day.
Oh,
So
that is so much
yeah,
fun.
that's something I want to share.
I was starting to think like, where is this guide that I can get? So
Yeah,
I
has,
have
like,
the
all the
30-day
moves.
method book, but that is really cool.
And I think like one thing that's like a topic that comes up is like, what do you do when you travel? And I guess like a book like this is handy because if for whatever reason you don't have Wi-Fi or you can't connect, like you can always just like look at the moves to do. And as long as you do like each move like 20 to 40 times, you can create like your own workout basically.
I think that's an interesting thing to think about, especially like for those of us that have done the method for years now, like when I first saw the 30-day method book, I'm like, how can you do an exercise that's in a book? You don't really know what she's doing, but now we really do. So
now you know. So it's like you look and you're like, okay, I get what she means. Like, I'll just do each of these moves. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is a great idea too, especially if it's like you don't have great Wi-Fi or, you know, things like that. It's a good reason to figure out where the heck the 30-day method book is in my house.
Yeah. There might be some floating around you can find like on Amazon or something maybe.
Well, we also wanted to play a game with you. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now, but we'd like to play 2 truths and a lie, and everybody that's watching can vote in the chat on what we think is true and what we think is a lie. So can you tell us 3 things about yourself?
Yes.
1 is a lie.
So I got prepared for this because I had to really think, like, what are some things that could, like, you're not quite sure if it's a truth or a lie. So here we go. Okay, so number 1, I have been featured in Women's Health magazine. Number 2, I give talks at the U.S. Embassy. Number 3, I've given John Legend and Chrissy Teigen private tours in Tokyo.
Wow, that's really cool.
So I'll give them again. So number 1, I've been featured in Women's Health magazine. Okay. Number 2, I give talks at the U.S. Embassy. And number 3, I've given John Legend and Chrissy Teigen private tours of Tokyo.
I definitely believe the first 2, like without a doubt. I don't see how those could not be true. But I kind of think the 3rd one could be true too. That is exciting. Okay, so Nicole says number 1 is not true, I guess. So she's like, number 1's not true. She wants to know what's it like to give those 2 celebrities tours. Okay, let's see. Ashley thinks number 3 is the lie. I mean, number 3, you know, that's kind of amazing, but it's definitely possible. Especially with your job. That's possible, I think.
So nobody thinks number 2's the lie. It's just either number 1 or number 3.
So number 2 is you give talks at the U.S. Embassy.
Correct.
That seems extremely possible.
Extremely.
I mean, yeah, especially with your job, I would feel like that probably does happen for sure. I really want.
I'm trying so hard to do poker face of all 3 of these.
Well, I really want number 3 to be true, but that would be the one I would have to guess is the lie.
Is the lie. Okay, should I wait for some more answers or should I give my response?
Well, do you have another thing you'd like to share with the Tamily first? Maybe we'll let people marinate for a little bit.
What else do I want to share with the Tamily? I really feel like we've covered everything. I don't know. I don't know what else there could be.
You've never been to a studio or a Vitality Week?
I want to go so badly. I'm just like, you know, I keep thinking like maybe it'd be really great to go to one in Palm Beach. Mm-hmm. So since I'm from West Palm, like I can just go visit family and then maybe do like a Vitality. Is it called Vitaly or Vitality? Did I say it right?
Vitality
Week there. And you know what? I've been to New York a handful of times and I feel like I've tried to call and go to a studio, but like something about it, like either the schedule didn't work or I couldn't go in without a membership or whatever it was. So I think like I'm going to have my heart set on doing a Vitality Week, maybe in Florida would be my
That'd
my
be so cool. How often do you visit the States?
I think pre-COVID, I was going maybe like once every year to year and a half, but I wouldn't always go to Florida. I would either just make a trip to New York and back, or because I have a sister who is living in Manhattan, or I would just go to Florida. So I'd like go to either one, but it used to be like on a yearly basis.
So I imagine now it hasn't been since prior to March of 2020.
It's definitely been a long time. Actually, I think it's been 3 years since I've been to Florida, and that's the longest it's been since I've been home. So,
Wow. Well, we can definitely coordinate a huge Tamily meetup whenever you're going to come.
yes, yeah. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. So let's see. We have a guess that number 2 is the lie. I am like so
Number
sure
2 is lie. Okay,
number
so everybody
3
thinks
true.
each of the 3 might be a lie. Yeah.
Nicole says this might be the most difficult 2 truths and a lie in history. They could all be true. Okay, so you have to tell us, but my guess is a lie.
So you guess number 3. Okay, so the answer is, the lie is number 3. I have not done it for John Legend and Chrissy Teigen. Although I have done private work with pretty influential people. I think one of them was like, I don't know, like I think celebrities might be more interesting. So I haven't worked with celebrities per se, but I have been working with people who are pretty interesting kind of globally, who have brought their business somehow here in Japan. And yeah, so the other 2 are truths. So I've been doing talks at the U.S. Embassy, and I also have been featured in Women's Health.
That is so awesome. Yeah. So when were you in Women's Health?
Yeah, so Women's Health, it was probably also a few years ago. Again, I'm losing time because of COVID, and that was related to kind of like some of the health concepts I brought up to you before, like the story of dealing with like Eastern versus holistic ways of thinking about nutrition. And I just think, like, you know, when you live in the States, there's so much media that tells you a certain way of like how you're supposed to be eating, or what type of exercise you should do, or the whole no pain, no gain, or, you know, I don't know, getting stronger, and, you know, all those different messages you hear are just so different from what I hear over here in Japan. And I just think that, you know, we need to be able to find finding what works for you also means being able to think of different alternatives to what you might be hearing, and understanding that like there's different ways to approach your health. So yeah, that was kind of what it was primarily about.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for this hour that we've spent with talking about your journey. And it's been super interesting getting to know a little bit about your book and everything. Nicole is saying she just bought your book.
That's great.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Thanks
funny.
so much.
Buy it tonight as well. It sounds really fun and super interesting. I love hearing like the relation between the 2 different cultures, and especially feeling the connection too with the method. And it really it speaks to me like what you're saying, because it goes with Tracy's philosophy that only you know yourself. Like, you're gonna know yourself the best, and you have to.
Yeah, it's okay to look at the media and be like, you know what, I don't think what I'm being told makes sense for me. Or also, you have to really be aware of what that person, when the person's writing about health info, who are they targeting? Because, you know, I've been like, when I was at my heaviest weight, like I was reading stuff that I didn't realize was on like men's bodybuilding websites about like protein carb ratios and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, probably a different target, you know, audience. If you're trying to just get to like a healthy weight, I feel like you can think in 2 steps. So getting to a healthy weight might just be about de-stressing, trying to be more connected with like natural seasonal foods, you know, exploring those things, making sure you have a proper digestive system, something that's a little bit more simple and kind. And then once you're like in this balanced state, then you can start adding on different kinds of exercise with TAM, you know, getting into TANE and maybe thinking a little bit more in terms of the science approach for your meals, so that you can really refine your body. So yeah, good way to think about it.
Just a great like perspective to have, which is not what is, you know, kind of put in our face all the time, especially when you think about the media and the way that people think things can work, and everyone is always looking for like a quick fix. instead of thinking about like being more natural. And I've never even thought about the eating with the seasons aspect. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. And I know that you were in Florida. Are you moved out of Florida, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah, so you're probably in an area that has more seasons too. So that's something to consider and to think about. Because in Florida, it's like kind of one pattern all year long. But yeah, where you're at now, there might be like different. So that's a way of thinking like, okay, my diet actually needs to constantly shift a bit. I don't have to find the one thing to eat every day for 365 days of the year. Actually, I need to start to interchange things as they change. So yeah.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Well, I'm definitely going to go over to Amazon and look for your book as well.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for being interview 150 and talking to us. And it's early in the morning there. It's almost late at night here, but I'm glad we were able to coordinate this and get some time with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who joined live, who's listening, and anybody listening to the recording too. Thanks for coming and hearing our talk.
Yeah, thank you for being such an inspirational part of the Tamily. We'll talk to you again soon. And this interview will go into Ask Tamily right now, and then in a couple days it'll also be on YouTube.
Go check it out.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, Tamily.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much.